of all the interviews I've done, and I've done some on this channel now, this is my favorite one. It was a bucket list item, I have to say, and I love every single one of the conversations I have done. But yeah, I had a super honor and pleasure to sit down and have a conversation with Steve Giles from Dark Around the Edges is one of my favorite albums of all time, maybe top 10, and obviously a super grail, and we'll come back to that later on. So in this conversation we talk a little bit of how Steve was brought up and ventured into music, how Dark came about. Also we go through every single volume of the Sea Light Court records, the 14 volumes, and what's on them. And obviously you cannot make one of these sort of conversations without talking about how it feels to have its record being sold on the secondary market for a staggering 50,000 euro just 6 months ago. I mean, what goes on in your mind when a record is sold for that amount? And we touch a little bit on that too. So as you know, I have a record store called sublimemedia.se, and I actually sell all of the volumes of Sea Light Court, of the Dark releases, all 14. That's not true, because 9 is already sold out. You can't get a hold of number 9. I actually have all of them myself, obviously, and number 9 I had to buy on the secondary market on Discogs. And the series 1 to 14 culminates, in my opinion, in number 11, which is the deluxe edition of Round the Edges. Gatefold sleeve, poster, nice thick booklet, and this sort of deluxe custom paper sleeve that the records comes in. But sitting down talking with Steve, and he's just the best guy in the world, we decided to do something special for everyone who decides to buy a few of these records. So I actually had the interview that's It's Psychedelic Baby, I had that printed out in like 7/8 A4 ordinary papers with pictures, stuff like that. But what this is, it works like a guide going through the entire catalog, or the 14 volumes of the Dark records on Sea Light Court. So I took the first page and I sent that to Steve for him to sign. So all of them are signed by Steve, and hand numbered 1 to 30. So if you buy at least 4 Dark records from my shop, you get one of these for free, just thrown in there, and you have a signed sort of guide by Steve Giles. And as I'm recording this, 10 of them are already sold, so there's 20 left. And my shop is mainly for the Swedish audience out there, but you can buy this from me. Just PM me on Instagram, maybe that is the most easiest way to do it, or email me on info@sublimemedia.se, and we'll sort something out. It's no problem. I send all over the world through Discogs and stuff like that, so it's no problem. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Steve, for doing this. And yeah, without further ado, here's the conversation. 1 hour with Steve Giles. Enjoy. Then I'll just start by, I've written some notes here, but so Steve Giles, thank you so much for taking your time to do this conversation on my channel. Musician, and maybe most famous for starting the band Dark, that recorded the somewhat famous Dark Around the Edges record, which fetched a breathtaking 50,000 euro just 6 months ago by a collector. Yeah, a small sort of intro of who you are, if you've been living under a rock and don't know who Steve Giles is.
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm Steve Giles, and I founded Dark way back now in 1968 while I was still at school, and I was about 15 at the time.
Yeah.
And I just roped in a couple of other guys from school, and we formed a band. Initially, I didn't have a name for it, so I was trying to come up with an idea for that, and I saw a photograph of a French actress in a magazine I subscribed to on a weekly basis, and her name was Mireille Darc.
Ah,
That's DARC, and I thought Dark. Oh, that's a great name for a band. So obviously used the traditional spelling of DARK, and that's where the name came from, right at the start.
ah, awesome. Shit, I didn't know that. Thought I've read up on everything, but had no idea about that. Yeah, I wrote some notes here just to get off the ground. What I would like to talk about is, if you allow me to, is your
Yeah.
musical background. And especially before dark, so before you turned 15, what was your, and then the maybe going into, because my channel is mostly about vinyl records and obviously music, but if we could talk a little bit about the different pressings that is out there, both
Yep.
official and unofficial, so sort of sort that out a little bit. uh,
Okay.
and then go into your collaboration with Sea Like Court, which is just fantastic. Go through the 14 volumes quickly, because there are both interviews where you have talked about the 14 volumes by Sea Like Court, and also interview on YouTube, I think.
Yep.
But briefly sort of going through them. And then I have some questions also that my subscribers asked you when I sent out on Instagram and said that I was going to have a conversation with you. And some of them threw in some questions. So maybe we can top it off with that, if that's
Yeah.
okay
Sure.
with you.
Yeah. Okay.
So my first question is, are you a record collector? Do you have a record collection nowadays?
I do, but it's not very extensive. It's well, I bought records way back, as I say, when I first started getting interested into being in a band. But they weren't actually to collect as such. They were just I could play to and jam to and learn how to play, because it was all self-taught. So I just played along to records. My favourite bands at the time were Cream, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, that sort of thing. So I bought those albums, but it wasn't with a view to collecting them; it was a view to playing them. So of course, they have been played to death from the start. And I do have actually one of the two actually fairly um, valuable originals. I've got the Led Zeppelin first album with the turquoise.
Oh, nice.
But of course, as I said, I played it to death. So the actual LP plays okay, but I mean, it's scuffed and it's got a few crackles. But obviously, when I bought that, I didn't realise it was going to be collectible, because they changed it to the orange lettering later on, and it's the few they had done in the turquoise lettering that are famous and valuable. And then I think there's I got one of the early Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland, and there's something about that there's some ghost writing on it where they changed the typesetting, and you can still see the original typesetting underneath, and I've got one of those. But
Yeah.
again, it's absolutely played to death. So although it's a valuable copy, it probably wouldn't be worth much in monetary values.
Yeah, well,
But
I think that if you were going to sell it with the sort of provenance of playing to it, that influenced the
yeah.
dark record, I think people would pay for it.
Well, I'll look into that at some point, maybe in the future when I
Yeah,
would
you
need
have
to
to
get.
write something, just put in
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, as I say, I've got maybe 50 LPs, but that's about it. So I never really collected. I've started buying repressed vinyls of late, but obviously they're not so valuable because they're represses. But that was just basically to replace the ones that I did have from way back when, Groundhogs, that sort of thing, Blind Faith. I've got all the originals of those, but I thought I wanted to replace them so that I didn't have to play the old ones anymore. So I've got some of those, but that's boosted up the collection. But as I say, not on a monetary value. Then I haven't got that many valuable ones. Certainly nothing like what you've got in the background there.
But this is crazy. I mean, this is just insane. There's no rhyme or reason to this at all. But if we go back to before you started Dark, you said that you were influenced by Cream, Jimi Hendrix, and Led Zeppelin. Were there other sort of bands, both maybe mostly British bands, but also other Europeans or American bands that you were influenced by?
Not specifically, but my main initial inspiration was when I was about 9. My great aunt took me to the cinema to see the Cliff Richard and the Shadow film, the young ones. And so I was watching that. And then when it got to the sequence where the Shadows and Cliff are playing in their youth club on stage, Hank Marvin and Bruce Welch got their Stratocasters, their red Stratocasters. I was spellbound by that. And I thought, wow, that's absolutely great. And that is what gave me the bug, I suppose, to want to play the guitar. But that was 1962. But obviously my mum and dad, I made them aware that I wanted to get a guitar, but nothing transpired until I got for Christmas 1965 a Spanish style acoustic guitar. Yeah. So that was okay. I mean, I was struggling with that because those Spanish style acoustics have quite a wide fretboard.
Yeah.
And for a guitarist, I've actually got fairly small hands. So although I played it okay, I did struggle a bit. So knowing that electric guitars had a slightly narrower fretboard, I thought, well, maybe I can get mum and dad to buy me one of them.
Okay.
So I put up some sort of campaign along those lines, and eventually in October of 1966, they relented and asked a family friend who they knew played guitar to take me along to a music shop and choose a suitable guitar for me. So that is where that original guitar came from. And you've probably seen it on some of the covers. It's that one I've painted all up.
Exactly, and the famous sort of head or neck, I don't know what it's called, but with the dark sort of...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I painted that guitar all up, yeah. So that was the very first electric guitar I had.
Oh, awesome. Still have it?
Or have you sold it? No, I can't remember what I did with it, but I obviously changed it for a Futurama sophomore, which is what I recorded the album with. But I have absolutely no recollection where it went, what I did with it, if I sold it or gave it away or took it in part exchange. But I hope somebody, whoever got it, I hope they kept it, because if they've still got it and they know the story and they know about Dark, then well, maybe they could get a bit of a small fortune for that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it would be awesome if it still existed. Great. So I thought of, like, when we go through the 14 volumes, I think that we are going to talk about sort of the early days. So if I may just segue a little bit to the recording of the Dark record. How long did the recording take you guys? Was it like a week, or was it one of those like 5-hour sessions? And also, what I haven't read about is, were you happy with the recording when you came out, or were there stuff when you heard it the first time on record that you thought you could change or whatever, do better?
No, not really. We recorded the album one Sunday afternoon, evening, from about 3 o'clock till 11 o'clock. We got all the backing tracks down during those 8 hours, and I did a bit of overdubbing. I think after we packed up, there was a bit of time left because we've got the studio booked till 11 o'clock. So there's a bit of time left. So I did a bit of overdubbing with the guitar, and then I went back on 3 further nights after that, up until the 13th of July that year. The session was done on the 9th of July, 1972, and I finished laying down all the backing tracks and the overdubs on the 13th. But no, well, obviously I realised that time was a limit. I was financing it out of my own pocket, so I couldn't be too fussy. But no, we were generally very pleased with the result, and so we were happy to let it go as it was. By the time I'd done the overdubs, Yeah, it was great. I mean, the actual backing tracks, I think most of them we had to do maybe 2 or 3 takes,
Mm.
maybe four, except for RC8. That was the only one we managed to do in a single take. And that is basically a live track because I did the only overdubbing I did on the backing onto the backing track was the vocals. So there's no guitar overdub. So basically, you've got the live backing track and then the overdub vocal. There was no multi-tracking, at least not with the studio we used in those days. So it was all recorded live. So if we made a mistake, we had to stop and start again, right from the
Okay.
everybody start again. So yeah, but no, I enjoyed the day thoroughly, and yeah, we were more than happy.
How long did it take for you to from recording to I guess mixing, mastering, and actually pressing the record so you had it in your hand?
Well, there was no mixing done because I said it was just a stereo backing track, and then I overdubbed vocals and guitar over that backing track onto another stereo master. So it was an original master, but no mixing. And then it was all in the hands of the studio. They sent the master tapes off to D-Roy Sound Services. I
Okay.
can't remember where they were now, somewhere up in the Lake District, I believe. They all closed down now, but I think we probably got the first test pressings back, a couple of test pressings back within maybe a couple of months, and then we okayed them when we had 30 more copies done. So we had 32, and that was by the end of towards the end of '72. And then at that time, people had heard the album, and a lot more people decided they would like to buy one. So I had to order another 30 pressings, so which had 2 test pressings initially.
So I don't know where we left off, but
No,
maybe
I don't.
you you pressed like the first initial
Oh,
run
yeah.
was 31 records or something like that, and then there was
32 in the
another
first
repressing.
press. It was 32 initially, then a lot more people said they'd like a copy, so I did another 32. So there was only ever 64 copies made, yeah.
But
And
how I mean, it's unbelievable. How couldn't uh, more people be interested in it? I mean, how come it didn't sort of go out on the big market?
well, that wasn't ever the intention behind recording the album. The only reason I recorded the album was having gone through three or four different lineups.
Okay.
And we got to the stage where we were playing the music we wanted to play, but we weren't really getting the viewers, the people, that we couldn't find the right places to play our music. So we were getting a bit despondent, despite the fact we really enjoyed playing together. And I could see we were going to end up splitting up because we just get fed up. So before that happened, I thought I've got to do something because I've got nothing. I've got a few tapes which will probably disintegrate over the years. So I've got to get something I can keep, hold on to, for posterity in the future. You know, look back on and play to my kids and my grandkids. So that's the reason I produced the album.
Okay.
Having done that, obviously we wanted to see who wanted a copy, but having done that, we thought, well, we've got a few copies over. We've got nothing to lose by sending them out to a few record companies, see if anybody's interested,
Mm.
which we did, but nobody took the bait. There was only one label that expressed any sort of interest. That was Island Records.
Oh, cool.
They came back to us and said, "Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we'll see if we can sort something out for you. If you'd like to arrange a gig, we'll send an A&R man along to have a listen to you and see what we can sort out."
Mm.
So we did that. At the end of 1973, we put a gig together, and it was a local. A students' union gig, so we set up there in their hall, and it went down like a bomb. The students loved it, but unfortunately, the supposed A&R man that was supposed to come along never turned up. So of course, it never went any further. So after that, of course, we just said, "Well, that's it. We'll have to split up now." So that was initially the end of Dark.
Yeah, it's insane. Um, so going a little bit further down the road, when did you start to see interest in sort of I guess, first of all, the music, because there were reissue sent out in 1990, if I read up correctly, without a cover. So when did you start to see this bigger sort of interest in the record?
Well, I think people first started discovering it before we knew anything about it. It was probably the mid to late 80s.
Mm.
And then I believe an American collector, I think it was Paul Majors, found one in a second-hand record store in London when he was over here. I think it had also been found by somebody else, and it had been made. People had been made aware of its existence, but it was Paul Majors that actually, and his partner Greg Breath, because they had a record label, Swank Records, I believe. A lot of this is all foggy in the mists of time, but it was Greg Breath that first contacted me. I think he'd got this second-hand album, which they'd made cassette copies of and sent round to all their record collecting mates and people that were in the know. And it was established that it was worthwhile trying to track us down and see if they could do a deal with us. So I think he was ringing through. He got the names of the personnel from the album, so he was ringing around local phone numbers that he found on from phone books. I suppose it was before the days of the internet, somewhat. And he eventually tracked me down and said, I think we can do something with your album if you're interested. So I said, well, yeah, of course I am. So I think he possibly asked me if I could send the master tapes over to them, but I was very loath to let them go. So I said, well, no, I can get them pressed here, and then I'll ship them over to you. And I can't remember how many they wanted. I think it was about 150, 200, something like that. But the pressing plant I used would only press a greater quantity as their minimum quantity. So I had more than they wanted. So by that time, it was becoming apparent that the original albums were worth a few £100 only in those days. So I had a few. So I thought, well, I'll sell one of mine, and then I can pay for the extra that they're asking, because what Swank were offering to pay wouldn't quite cover the cost, because I got the cost of the album getting pressed. It came in a white sleeve and a plain inner sleeve, and they wanted me to put photos on the front and back as per the original, so I had to get them printed. And again, so that all added to the cost. So with what they paid us and what I managed to sell mine for, we managed to do the deal, and I sent them all over to America. However many there were 150 or so, I think.
Okay.
And that was the first pressing.
Okay. And then it was put out in 1991 with a different cover, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that was the very first version of Kissing Spell, I believe. And I think they called themselves Dark Side record labels in those days, because they had actually approached to me because they'd heard about the album. They said, can we put a CD out of it? I said, well, yeah. And then we went down that road a little bit. I said, well, if you're interested, I've got a few of the very first pressing left, because I had to get more press than the American label wanted. So would you be interested in any of those? And they said, well, yes, certainly. So I sent them in the plain white covers. He said, don't do anything with the covers. I'll sort my own cover out. Send them to me. I think he had 200, something like that. So I sent them all to him, and he did his own cover with the lyric insert. And that was the second one. Exactly the same record, but different packaging. Yeah.
I think it's a pretty nice record cover on that one. It's not as nice as the original one, but it's a little bit like
different. Yeah.
Much different, much different. And then later on, you have some CD reissues. I think that I read, like Kissing Spell '92 or something like that. Is that official or unofficial
depends.
release?
Well, all the Kissing Spell ones are official, but the very first Kissing Spell CD is probably the one you're talking about. Is the one that they initially approached me to ask. It's not called Dark Round the Edges. I think I've got one here. It's just called Dark.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Oh, yes, here it is. That's probably the one you're thinking of, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the one that Kissing Spell approached me for. And So they put that out in 91, 92, at the same time as they put out that other LP that I told you about that they put on their own. Another, I think it was supposed to be a sub label, which they call Dark Side.
Ah, okay.
But I said they were all just starting up then. So,
And
but yeah,
I think in the next one with vinyl reissue is that Karma 1998, and they have done a lot of reissues of that one, but that is totally unofficial, is it?
the very first one of '98 that was official.
That was
Um,
official.
that
Okay.
was official. The very first they did 1,000 copies on grey marble vinyl. It was supposed to be. And so we were paid for that, a miserly sum now, looking back on it, between the four of us. But the contract was that they'd put that out, and then if they did any more, we'd get paid pro rata on however many they put out.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, they kept reissuing it on different vinyl, black vinyl, coloured vinyl, clear vinyl, picture disc. They put all these out over the next, oh, 10, 11, 12 years. And we didn't see any money for those. They did them
Oh,
without our okay. They put them out without telling us they were going to. So the first we heard of it when we saw them being sold and people telling us off, I've seen another Rakama. So we tried to get in touch with them. We sent them emails and say, what about our payment?
yeah.
But they ignored all the contact we tried to make with them. We've never had any contact with them since. So that went on, so I think, till about 2011. Then they seemed to stop because by that time we'd been trying to stop them doing this.
Mm.
So for about 10 years, they didn't put in more out. But then in 2021, they started reissuing quite a few of their back catalogue, and ours was one of those. So they
Okay.
put them out again, but again, without consultation to us and without paying us anything. So, yeah, there's many hundreds of albums they put out, which we didn't get any from. I mean, if you check the sleeves and the booklet of the reissues back to the 1998 one, it all says there are 1,000 pressings on grey marble. But they weren't. It was only that first one that was grey
Okay.
marble, and the others they perhaps done 200, 500, but they've been on different vinyl. So
Mm.
you can tell the packaging is the same, whichever one you get, and they've all got the same catalogue number. But I say it was only that very first one of 1,000 that was official.
Yeah, but I've never heard the story, so that's it's. Thank you so much for clearing that out, and I think that it's in a lot of people that watches this channel's interest to know what is legitimate or not. So thank you so much. There are
Well,
one.
the one thing about all the Akama pressings is that is good is that it did get the name of the band and the name of the record out there. I mean, possibly without Akama doing what they did, we wouldn't be where we are now. So
Okay.
it did have a good side to it, but it was a bit unfortunate they made it a bit of an immoral uh,
I understand.
work, because they didn't approach us and we never got paid. But yeah, so up and down.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I saw that Machu Picchu did a reissue in 2013 also. Is that
Yeah,
a official or unofficial?
that's totally official. That one, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Which brings us to your collaboration with Sea Like Court, which is fairly new to me, the record label, but I bought everything that they have released, including obviously your Dark Records. How were you approached by the label, and how did you work coming up with the sort of the entire catalog being released?
Well, they'd been talking to me for quite some time, for maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Hmm?
I started contact. I mean, they've approached me now and again, but there was other things going on. There was other people putting things out, so I didn't want to do too much at one time. I thought it'd be a bit overkill. So they just approached me now and again, and I think they came back to me in 2019, something like that. Um, and they put forward the idea of doing another pressing, and they said, "Have you got any more material that we can put out and release it?" Well, I said, "Yeah, I've got loads, but I'm going to have to sort through my old tapes and find it." I said, but a lot of it is not very good quality, so I'll find it and you can see what you can do with it. So maybe about a year later, because it took me quite a time to go through all my tapes and actually transfer them from tape to digital, so that I got something I could send them. So I said, well, I found all this stuff. I think it was probably 2020 by then.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so they said, well, actually, yeah, this is all good stuff. I said, we could do something and put it out like a story of how you progressed. I said, well, I don't know. I said, some of the old stuff back from the 60s and early 70s, it's not very good. It's only stuff I recorded for myself at the occasional church hall gig or at a rehearsal in the cellar under my dad's shop. I don't really think it's very good quality. And they said, well, it doesn't matter because of the way everybody knows dark round the edges, this is now archival material. It is effectively your life's work, and I think people are going to be, really interested to hear it. I said, well, okay, if you're keen to, and obviously they were offering to pay for it all, so I said, well, yeah, go ahead if you want to. So I said, by the way, do you realise that in 2022 it'll be 50 years since Dark Round the Edges came out? And they said, oh yeah, yeah, we'll have to do something for 2022. We'll have to get it all sorted for then. So it went from there.
Okay.
So I'd sent them all the files I could find, and they started sorting out artwork and asked me for photos, anything I've got going way back when, right back to the start, and basically I left it all in there. I did all the sorted out all the audio files for them to send off to record pressing labels and whatever they wanted to do with it. And obviously, I supplied all the photos, but
Mm.
they had all the work, so I
Yeah.
left it in their hands.
Let's see here. I put everything out here, but the 11th volume is the definite sort of dark around the
Yeah.
edges. I call it like a deluxe version. I don't know if that's the.
Well, the reason that paper bag came about is because CD Corp were very keen not to deface what is effectively the original artwork.
Exactly.
And if you look at that cover, yeah, that is actually a photograph of Clive, our drummer. He's the only one of us that's got an original colour gatefold. So they are actually colour photos of his album.
Oh,
And that is the way when I first made them, I had the group shot on the front rather than the girl.
this one.
That is why the gatefold opens that way rather than
Okay,
the girl
okay.
on the front. That's right, yeah. So that is how I put. Although my versions weren't traditional gatefolds, they did open like that with the group shot on the front and the girl on the back.
Ah,
The reason that, as I say, CD Court wanted to put that album into that paper bag is because they didn't want any barcodes on it or anything like that. That's
smart.
right. But distributors won't do anything that doesn't have a barcode on. They refuse to
Oh.
work with them. So they said, well, the only way we can get around that is to do that paper bag in outer sleeve, because that's what they did.
Yeah, well, it's a really nice touch, and it feels really sort of deluxe and exclusive. The girl, is that someone that did you take the photo?
I
Because you're
did,
a
yeah. Yeah, I took those
photographer,
photos.
aren't you?
Well, I was. I'm retired now, but
Mm.
yeah, I was a photographer then. That girl is. We've never been able to track her down, unfortunately, ever since it became famous. Because I did give her one of the original colour albums,
Oh,
but her name is Frances Hamilton,
okay.
and wasn't going out with her at the time, but we did date for a few months before that, and she was the daughter of the local vicar. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so, and I actually first met her because we did a paper round, both did a paper round at the local newsagent. So
Okay.
that's how I first met her. And the idea, that idea for that photo came up one day. I was standing in that room looking out the bay window, and just as she walked past with her young sister, and as she did that, the idea of that photo just sprang into my mind. So I
Cool.
dashed outside and told her what I was thinking and told her why I was wanted to take the photograph, that we made an album and I was struggling to come up with photos for it,
Mm.
and asked her if she'd be willing to pose like that. And she was, yeah, a brief bit of thought. And she said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So
But I
we
mean,
arranged the date. She came over and I took the photos.
That's a great story. I mean, you did press 32, and then there was some more interest, but it was never sort of a commercial product, because
No,
I never understood why you didn't have a band logo, a dark logo like this, uh,
sure, yeah,
on the
yeah.
cover.
Well, I did that deliberately. I just wanted plain photos. I
Yeah.
didn't want any extra printing. I thought I'd leave that to the inside,
Yeah.
either in the gatefold or in the booklet that comes with it. I never thought of doing a logo, I must admit, because obviously, again, it was long ago in the 70s. It was before computers, before the internet.
Mm.
The only way I could have done a logo would have been to find some suitable letter set, which is
Yeah.
how I did the printing on that track listing shot. It was all a photograph, and all that printing is me letter setting individual letters
Okay.
onto the actual photograph, then taking a picture of that so
Ah,
that I got a negative that I could work from for all the albums. So it
ah,
was a bit
okay.
laborious, but I never thought of actually doing a logo.
Hmm.
Um,
Because I thought, like, with Led Zeppelin being inspiration, and Cream, and those are so iconic sort of uh, typos and or typography. I can't remember the English word for it, but fonts, like, and
yeah,
logos. So and I can just imagine, like, if you're sitting in your boys' room, 15 years old, writing music, playing guitar, I would be skissing on a big fat logo, like, just like the the big bands have.
well,
Um,
the only logo I did paint in the cellar under my dad's shop, where we rehearsed all the time, and I painted the back wall white, and on that white I did in very large orange letters, dark.
okay.
Although that isn't actually a logo, it is, I suppose, a symbol of our name that we use. I didn't do anything with it other than leave it on that wall. But no, for the album itself, I never even crossed my mind to do a logo.
Yeah. Uh, I thought, like, maybe this would be a good time to just fly through the individual volumes, and
Yep,
a little bit about what we can expect if we get one of these. This is the first one, volume one.
yep.
So the first side is entirely recording by you, is it?
Yeah, I've got the details here. Let's have a look. We could look. Honestly, I
Yeah.
can't remember what's on what
No, no, it's
albums.
14 volumes.
Oh yeah, that was the very first lineup, just the three of us. That three. There was Bruce Duncan, who's on the left, he played guitar, I'm in the middle, and then
Mm.
on the right hand side is Charlie Himes, he plays drums. And they were all recorded at a church hall in 1969 sometime. Again, it was just a recording I did for myself. So the playing's a bit amateurish, and a bit self indulgent, which you would expect for sort of 15, 16-year-old kids at the time. And although I had a reasonable tape recorder, I didn't have very good microphones for it. So I just recorded it for myself to play. I never expected anything would ever be done with it.
No.
But it turned out okay, for what I was expecting. So we were happy with that. But yeah, that would have been, I think I've got a date there. No, it just says 68 to 69. So I don't know what date it was actually recorded, but sometime late 68 or sometime in 69.
And as you say, the sound quality isn't audiophile quality at all, but that wasn't even, I mean, as you say, you weren't supposed to put this out to anyone. It
Exactly.
was for yourself. But we, as fans, are really glad that this is out there for all of us to enjoy.
Yeah, well, that exactly why Kissing, not Kissing, but Sealy Court wanted to put it out because they thought,
Yeah,
you know, everybody that knows the Dark Round the Edges album will be interested to hear the progression of the music right from the start right
exactly.
up until, well, I think they used the 1996 recordings we did. Yeah.
And the B side, if I understood correctly, is live set, but a little bit later on, isn't it?
Um,
and the recording quality is a little bit better also, if I remember.
Oh yeah, there's the other side. It's a bit out of sequence. That one. That's the
Okay.
jam. It's one track, one side. And the only reason I recorded that is because after Dark split, I got a recorder. I bought one from SIS after they closed down,
Mm.
and I invested in a 4-channel TIAC Simul Sync machine. So having got that, I managed to source a 12-channel mixer.
Mm.
So I bought those, set them all up in my parents' loft. I built a studio in my parents' loft. And in order to try them all out, I wanted to try recording something live. And then once I'd recorded it, I'd got the bass and drums sort of on 2 channels and then 2 guitars on separately on another 2 channels. So I wanted to practice mixing them in. So that's why I recorded that. And the Jam 1975 is just the result of me messing about, trying different settings and panning the guitars left to right. And I just kept it because I was quite happy with how it turned out. And so that is effectively, I say it's out of sequence. That was recorded in '95. But because it was going to be difficult to fit it anywhere else in those albums,
Yeah.
that first album was the only one that had enough space on one side to put it on.
Yeah. And the second one, I love this photo. It's such a nice photo. This is also chronologically like the second thing that you guys recorded,
Yeah,
is
that is. Let's go to it. I've got that down this 12th of February 1970. So that would have been basically a gig, although I think the first track, which was initially thought to be a gig track, it wasn't. I think it was a rehearsal track, but they're basically all from that time, early 1970, after we'd added a keyboard player. But that picture's not. That picture is way back to 1968.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the first pictures of me with that painted up guitar. Yeah, and that's the band's. Yeah, the original lineup. And that was in the cellar in my dad's shop.
Okay, so this is in your dad's shop.
Yeah, I think that was before I painted the dark on the back wall. That one.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I saw a Facebook by Weaver.
Oh, Martin Weaver. Yeah.
Yeah, Martin Weaver. He wrote that he remembers the smell of your dad's shop, and it
Yeah, yeah,
reminds
it
him
was a
of
bit
dark.
awful. It was quite damp down there, and I
Yeah.
tried to. And when we put some carpets down and we put heaters in to try and get rid of it all, but it
Okay.
never got rid of the smell. So
That's cool, cool memory. And volume three. Uh,
yeah,
I always wondered what since I got this, who are the three lovely ladies and the man? Is that
that is my immediate family at the time. That was the lady in the middle at the front. That's my gran. It
okay?
was her 80. I think it was her 84th or 83rd birthday. I can't remember now, but it was a significant one. So we all went round for the day to be with her on her birthday. The lady on the left is her sister. My great aunt. She's the lady that took me to the cinema to see the young ones. So
Ah, okay.
it's all her fault. Everything that's happened since then.
Okay, so
If she hadn't taken
this
me to the cinema, this might never have happened. And then the
okay.
lady on the other end, that's my mum.
Ah, okay, okay.
That's my mum. The gentleman at the back, that's my dad.
Yep.
And then next to him is my brother.
Okay.
And then obviously I'm the one holding the guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the sort of anomaly. Is that the English word for it? I mean, a
Yeah.
family photo, but a little bit of a rock splash to it, I
I
guess.
don't know why I can't remember now why I took the guitar with me to that party, but I'm glad I did because obviously that photo wouldn't have featured otherwise.
It's a wonderful
Likewise,
photo, and
there's
I love the colors.
one of me on they did a 33 and a third 7-inch CD core, and they've used that photo of me sat on the chair, and that's taken at the same time. Yeah, it's taken at the
Yeah.
same time.
Okay, so it's the same day. I love this photo also. Yeah, and that's the back side, I guess,
Yeah,
of
that's yeah.
the 14th volume. And then we go into the fourth, looks like
Hmm.
this. So this is a little bit later, is it?
Yeah, that is. Well, that was during 1970 to 71.
Yep.
By the end of 1970, early 71, the original bass player and the original drummer had left, just leaving myself and the keyboard player.
Ah,
So I advertised, and we got Carl Bush on bass. He's the one on the right.
I
And
see.
then next to him is Clive Thornycroft. He's drums, and we still play about together on musically now and again when we got time.
Hmm.
So he was the drummer that replaced Charlie,
Okay.
and they were the band that feature on uh, Volume 4.
Okay. Okay.
Again, they were live recordings and some rehearsal recordings, I
Hmm.
believe, and they were also um, some tracks from that on the what is it, Artifacts and Black Museum
Hmm.
LP,
Okay.
which also all those tracks feature in these volumes.
And then we segue into to the fifth. You remember uh,
Yeah,
what session this is?
that is same lineup, I believe. Yeah, same lineup, but
Hmm.
again, it's just basically some live, some rehearsal recordings.
Hmm.
There's a couple of covers in there, I believe, a Cream cover and a
Oh,
Blind
yeah,
Faith
that
cover.
one.
But I think we may have played them live, but I'm not sure. I think I've got Do What You Like. I think I've got a live version of.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the same line. It was the four of us. But that is a photo we took that I could make a business card out of, and that was after Martin Maloney, the keyboard player, left.
Yeah.
So it's just
Okay.
that's when we went back to a three piece.
Okay.
So that would have been probably mid 1971. That
So we're getting close to the actual album now. And six, is this the sort of a
that's
continuation
yeah.
of the fifth?
That's we went to a three piece again,
Hmm?
and that was just three of us. I say Martin, the keyboard player, had left, so it just left me, Clive, Carl, and myself.
Hmm.
So again, we've just got we. I don't. Yeah, we do have some recordings and studio records. There, that's you see there. It's only in
Yeah.
black and white, but that's the dark I wrote on the back wall,
Ah,
painted on the back wall. Yeah, but yeah, we did some. We did two or three tracks, three or four tracks at SIS before we went into to do Dark Round the Edges with that lineup, and they've got In the Sky, RC8, Wasting Your Time, Could Have Sworn, and yeah, I think that was all that was at the recording session. But later on, we went back in. Actually, it was before Martin left to do a jingle that had been commissioned by a local business and called Primate. And we went in and recorded the Primate eating jingle. That was for the
okay.
Ideal Home exhibition in 1971.
Ah, and then we have number seven. It's
Yeah, same
the
again.
three piece
Yeah,
band.
that's that. I'm not sure whether they were the backing tracks. Let me have a look.
Okay.
Oh, they were backing tracks for the recording session. Yeah,
Okay. And then we go to eight. Is this where is this photo taken?
that is
You
in
remember?
the my parents' loft in their
Ah,
house,
okay.
and that is the recording studio I built there, and that's just Ron strumming away on a second electric guitar I had at the time. By that time, I'd gone on to my Rickenbacker, but I
Ah,
bought a second one that other people could play. That's Ron,
okay.
on his
Fantastic.
moped type thing. Yeah,
That's awesome. And did you take the pictures?
I must have taken that one. Yeah, I can't remember doing it, but it must have been me.
Hmm.
I don't know who took the one of Ron on his moped, but
This is also a great shot in my opinion. This it's perfectly framed, like uh, yeah. And actually, I don't have number nine and number 10. Number nine is completely sold out, so I can't get
that, I
a
don't know if we've got one
copy
line.
of
Have
it.
we got? Oh, that was the Dougal sleeve version. Um, Oh, I have got one. I haven't got it to hand, unfortunately. But
All right,
yeah, the doodle
edit
sleeve
really.
version. That was the doodle sleeve came about because when I got the first two test pressings of Dark Round the Edges,
Mm.
I took them round to my girlfriend's house, and basically we just scribbled on the sleeves. I did.
Yeah.
We did pencil drawings, just doodles, one side and then the other, and I let her keep the album. So that's why that happened. There was no other reason that they didn't have. It's before I decided to stick the photographs on because I didn't have the actual pressings. So I had only those two test pressings. So I kept one of them and they gave her the other.
Hmm.
And so on the plain white sleeve, we just doodled away.
Yeah.
And then she kept it. And a few years ago, she let me borrow it so that I could take photos of it. So that's where those sleeves came from. Do you want me to
Okay.
look see if I can find one?
Uh, uh,
Do you want me to see if I can find a doodle sleeve?
no, it's okay. I can
Okay.
edit it in
Yep. Yep. Yep.
so but thank you. And then we go to 11, which we talked about, the actual sort of
Yeah. 9, 10, and 11 were all the same recordings, just
okay.
in different sleeves. Yeah, they're all dark
Yes.
around the edges. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I have to get. I sold all the tens. The nine I can't get a hold of anymore, and yeah, and the 11 is my personal copy. So I'm getting more into my shop, and then we
Okay.
go to 12. So this is way after
Yeah. And
the
we would
record.
split up again after well, I say after Dark Round the Edges, and we did that one-off special gig for the recording label that didn't transpire, and then we all went our different ways. But Ron and I carried on recording in my parents' lofts in my studio, and then eventually SIS Studios closed down, so I took over their premises and set up all my kit there.
Mm.
So we did from between about 1974 up until 1977.
Mm.
We did a load of recording, but then after that, we just stopped. I hardly touched the guitar at all for many years after that. But then,
Oh,
um, once all the interest started in the album, we started getting money for licensing rights. We
mm.
saved it all. We thought, well, we've accumulated a reasonable amount of money. We might as well get back in the studio and do another album. So
Yeah.
we decided to do that, and that's where this album came from, The Anonymous Days. Originally, it had only 9 tracks on, but
Okay.
for these series of albums, I've put well, that artwork you're looking at now. That's the original CD artwork that we put out in 1996.
Okay.
But then it got released by Kissing Spell, and they did their own artwork.
Mm.
But for this latest series of LPs, I've added 3 more tracks that I found that were done at the time. A couple of them were rehearsing tracks that didn't actually get through to the album, and
Okay.
then there's another version of Miles and Miles Away that was that we rejected in favour of the one that we actually used.
Okay. This is
So that
awesome. This is
yeah, that's actually
really, really
split
good.
into 2 albums. Yeah,
And the 13th, then the last one of the 12-inch records, um, I believe.
yeah, that's right. So that's the second half of Anonymous Days because there was 12 tracks. They wouldn't all fit on one album, so
Okay.
rather than making it a double album, which exceeds the cost to make it worthwhile doing, CD Court decided to make 2 single albums instead.
So what's the future for the dark and the dark sort of album?
Um, well, there's probably not much future for the band itself. I mean, Ron Ron and I have both got health problems, which makes it difficult to play. Martin's moved to he moved to Bulgaria, but now he's living in Portugal, so he can't join us. So we used to get together with a couple of other friends for quite a few years. Just we did the odd charity gig, and we just rehearsed for our own amusement, just for the fun of it.
Hmm.
But then the pandemic happened, and I became ill, and it became impossible to actually play together. But we've tried recently, within the last few weeks, just myself, Ron, and Clive, and Ron's brother came along, Andy. just messing about to see what might happen. So that might go somewhere, but it'd probably be more just for our own amusement rather than anything. We might do a little local gig, but it won't be very long because we can't cope with a lot these days, getting old like we are. But but yeah, well, we'll see. But no, the Dart itself as a band won't do much, but you never know. There's always interest in the album.
Mm.
And now these other albums have come out, maybe somebody will pick up on Anonymous Days. There's a possibility of another label doing a live. We made a live record in it was 2011 because we got back together in 2011 because unfortunately I lost one of my daughters. She passed away, so we did a charity gig in her memory.
Mm.
And having done that, we thought, well, let's do another gig that we can actually record. So I did that and made a live recording of that. So it's possible that that might get put out. It has actually been put out as part of a double album in 2018 by Void Records of America. But it's possible another label might put out just the live version of it at some point. Maybe this year, we'll see.
Mm.
So possibly there. And obviously, if people still want to do anything with Dark Round the Edges, well, I've got the tapes. I've got the files.
One thing that I forgot to ask is, what was this one remastered at Abbey Road Studios?
The Dark Round the Edges.
That,
Yeah, that was.
how did you approach, or did you have anything to do with the mastering process this time compared to the other reissues that have been put out? I mean, did you sort of could you go at it and sort of ask for things that you felt lacked in another sort of reissue, or was it just like out of your hands?
Well, I suppose I could have done, but CD Court arranged all that. They paid for us to go
Okay.
down to Abbey Road. So I didn't want to interfere too much, and I don't think there's much I could have said anyway. But no, it was left to the recording engineer. We went down there, myself and Ron, and I filmed what was happening, and I put a video of that on YouTube, so that there's a record of that happening. But no, basically, it was just as the original tapes are. There was no manipulation done at all, really.
Okay. I think it sounds fantastic. Now, I haven't compared it with an original, so I can't really.
It's difficult to do these days. I mean, I think I have put. I did borrow Clive's a couple of times, and I actually very carefully played it and made a copy of it playing. So there is on my YouTube channel, there is a video of it playing. So you have actually got the audio of the original album. But
Awesome.
no, well, it's equally as good, if not better. The Abbey Road remaster is equally as good, if not better, than the original. Certainly.
Okay. Cool. Let's see here. Yeah, I have some subscribers questions, but before we go into, I mean, if you would, how do you sort of how do you cope with an art you made in 1972? How do you cope with that going for 50,000 euro? How do you wrap your head around that? I mean, I have seen artworks by famous painters that goes for less than that, and from the 17th or 18th century. I mean, it is an art piece. So it in my world, it's not strange in one way that a piece of art goes for that. But how do you sort of cope with it?
Well, I mean, I'm completely astounded. I sold my last copy of my original albums in the mid 90s because I got into slight financial difficulties and I wasn't sure how I was going to get out of it. And it occurred to me that the album was fetching somewhere in the region of about £1,500 by then. And even that boggled my mind. I thought, well, this can't last. The bubble's going to burst. People are going to lose interest in it. So if I'm going to make any money out of it, I need to sell it now. So I sold that and got 1,500 quid to an Italian collector. And then I was astonished to see the value just kept going up and up and up, and I just couldn't believe it. It totally beyond my comprehension. But then it started getting to the tens of thousands, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, and it just didn't stop. And I can't work it out. I mean, the only reason it's done that is because partly because there's so few original copies,
Mm.
but on the back side of that, it's been made so aware all around the world by people such as the Karma and all the CD reissues. It's made it so available in those formats that the collectors that find those versions and then find out that there are so few originals about, if they seriously want an original copy, they're not maybe that too bothered about the quality of the record or the sleeve. They just want that as a collectible item. So if they see one coming up, they'll go after it hammer and tongs. And if you get a few people after one album, consequently the price will go up and up and up and up. And that is obviously why it's got to those silly prices. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to pay that sort. If I could afford it, I certainly wouldn't think of paying that sort of money. No, I couldn't pay that.
No,
But
I think it's fantastic, and I bet that it wouldn't go for that amounts if the record wasn't good. If you understand what I
well,
mean. I mean, it's one
yeah,
thing
yeah,
to
yeah.
collect an artifact of 65 copies or something like that initially pressed, but I mean, if the record was shit, people wouldn't buy it, you know.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, well, that's nice of you to say. And I must admit, as I said before, we were happy with the recording,
Mm.
and we played well together, so we knew we were a fairly good band. But because I could see we were splitting up, I just wanted to get it down on record,
Yeah.
only for my own personal use. So that's what it was originally made. So the fact that it's eventually become known literally across the whole world is something that I just can't fathom. I just can't get my head around it. But I'm so glad that people like the music,
Yeah.
and because we liked it, and so that so many people like it now is great. I mean, there are some that don't like it, which is fair enough. It
Oh,
can't be to everybody's
I think
taste, but
so.
the fact that most people do like it is great.
Uh, awesome. Yeah, I have some subscribers' questions.
Yep.
Any music that is put out today that you like to listen to? Do you have like any modern music that you like to listen to?
No, I must admit I don't follow modern music. So I mean, occasionally I'll hear something I like, but
Mm.
I don't go out of my way to listen to it. My music tastes go back to my um, 60s and 70s days, I suppose. Which is, I say, Cream, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Robin Trower, you know, Groundhogs, all that sort of thing. And I've still got their records, and I still play them occasionally, but. Um, no, I haven't. I don't follow modern music. I say unless I hear something that I really like. I suppose more modern is sort of like Van Halen. I suppose
Mm.
although they did go back quite a way. So, but they were a band that I heard further on from my when I started. But yeah, no, modern music I don't tend to follow.
Okay. I think that a lot of from maybe in the 90s bands were extremely influenced by the dark record. So I think that there are a lot of music out there that has you to thank. I talked with Mikael Åkerfeldt from Opeth, which is a progressive metal band. And I know that he is a huge fan, and he is selling out like arenas all over the world. And I think that you are one of the big influences of his music. So the next one is name some of your favorite British albums of all time. Hard one to do maybe, but you said Cream and Hendrix and
Yeah.
Zeppelin.
Well, Disraeli Gears is probably one of the first
Mm.
I really cottoned on to. Then you've got the first Led Zeppelin album, then Jimmy Electric Ladyland. Um, but again, it's all part and parcel of not really collecting albums. It's just if I go into a record shop to buy something, I browse through like you used to do in those days. You browse through all the LPs. Oh, that looks like a good one, so I'll buy that.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I'll go into the booth and listen to it, which you could do in those days. But obviously, it's all changed now. But um, no,
You said Robin Trower. I feel like Robin Trower is one almost like a musician in
yeah.
a way. It's extremely technical guitarist, isn't he?
Oh, he is. Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. Obviously, I knew him from his days of Procol Harum. I think he was in. But then when he started to go solo, I started listening to some of his albums, and
Mm,
I've replaced them with the represses that they've done.
yeah.
But yeah, and him and Peter Frampton, he was another one.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember him right back from his early pop days when he did when he was in the Herd. That's when I first became aware of him. And then when he did Frampton's Live,
Yeah.
whatever the album was, that was a brilliant album. And then
Mm.
Colosseum, that was another one, especially their live album.
So no,
But,
no Beatles, Stones.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. I suppose Beatles was before I actually got into playing the guitar. But I remember when Sergeant Pepper's came out, I bought one of their first those albums when they first came, one of the first releases of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I followed the Beatles. But as I say, that was before I started actually getting involved in music myself. So they didn't actually inspire me as such. They inspired me towards music,
Mm.
but not towards dark or playing the guitar.
And my cat here. I, my cat is scratching on the but Pink Floyd did the kind of a cover thing of Dark Side of the Moon in influence of one of your tracks, but we won't talk about that.
I'm sure they didn't, but at least I got in first with the lyric, even though their album is a bit more famous than ours.
Not better. Uh, and another guy asked because it's mostly guys. Are you making any new music today? And in a way, you already answered that
Yeah, I
question.
did. Yeah, I've already
Uh,
touched on that. Yeah, unfortunately, no, we won't be doing much more playing. If we do it, it'll just be for ourselves more than anything. Yeah.
and the last one is any musicians that we might know of that you have jammed with?
Um, no. Oh, well, not really. The only claim to fame along those lines would be when after the Dark split and I joined another band that went around all the local clubs. We were once upon a time we got asked. We got the agent actually fixed us up with a gig for I think it was oh crikey, what was Marty Wilde? It was a significant birthday to him, probably his 40th or 50th birthday. I can't remember now, but we were booked to play at his party, and it was absolutely crammed with people. And he'd set up a big marquee in his grounds, and we played to that crowd. And then about halfway through, he came up and said, "Can I sing to? Can you back me if I do some singing? Can you back me?" So he was singing some of his standards, and we were just playing along behind him so he could sing. But apart from that, no, I've never played with anybody famous
Oh,
now.
of course. I won't take up more of your time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure.
I'm blown away of your the time that you have taken to chat with me. Um, yeah, I don't think I have any more questions. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think
Before?
we've just about covered everything from as
Yeah.
far as I can remember. We've certainly gone the whole journey from 68 to 96.
Yeah.
We can't do much more than that. Well, we haven't gone past 96 and talked about what we're doing now. So, no, I think you've done a good job. Thank you,
Ah,
Jonas. It's very
well,
nice.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we'll say bye and
Cheers.
so you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't and give this a thumbs up because it really helps. It really does. Now, if you want more content, then just look me up on Instagram. I put stuff up there before YouTube. So a little bit of what's coming up, so to speak. Again, thank you so much and have a great day, everyone. I'll talk to you in my next video.